Okay, let's jump right into this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're tearing into some really incredible source material excerpts from something called The Unbreakable Teacher.
Hmm.
And it tells this, well, pretty gripping story about a brand new teacher, Mia Harper,
Yeah, stepping into
who's
job
stepping
technique.
into this high school, Westbridge High, that's known for being seriously tough, specifically room 204.
Right, room 204. The Force paints it as this notorious classroom, kind of a proving ground, maybe even a breaking ground for teachers.
Totally. And our mission today, really, is to unpack how Mia, who seems kind of underestimated at first, handles these immediate challenges,
Especially from the class leader, this kid, Troy Baxter.
and how she just flips the script on the whole dynamic, and surprisingly quickly, too.
Absolutely. It's less about pedagogy, lesson plans, and more about pure human interaction, power dynamics, how she navigates this lion's den.
So let's set the scene. Mia arrives. She's 25, youngest teacher there. The source describes her appearance: warm eyes, chestnut hair, kind of approachable.
But with this quiet confidence, yeah, even walking into what sounds like chaos.
Exactly. Room 204 itself, chipped desks, flickering lights. You get this sense of neglect, and the kids are just watching her, sizing her up.
Oh, instantly. The source mentions whispers right away, like, oh, looks like she just graduated.
Yeah, or bet she cries by lunch. It's like they have a system.
They do. And the leader of that system is definitely Troy Baxter.
Tell us about him. The source paints quite a picture.
Yeah, Troy. He's described as broad-shouldered, permanent sneer. Already got a bit of a rap sheet, apparently.
Right. And he's got his crew.
Mm-hmm. Jake wiry, quick laugh, always doodling crude stuff. Kayla's sharp tongue, dyed purple hair.
Mm.
And Marcus, the sort of quiet giant in the background.
And this crew, they're not just noisy, they're organized.
Yeah. The source says they've driven out 2 substitute teachers already with these elaborate creative pranks. They're a unit.
And Troy's perception of Mia, he thinks she's going to be easy pickings.
Totally. Think she'll fold like a cheap lawn chair, is the quote, I think. He expects her to crumble just like the others.
So Mia starts day one. She's teaching To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right, classic text.
And the source notes her style is bright, engaging. She seems on the surface maybe a little naive, unaware of the storm brewing.
That's the initial impression, yeah. But here's where the source gives us that crucial insight into her head. She wasn't oblivious. Not at all.
Okay, so what was she thinking?
Well, the material says she wasn't blind to it. She grew up in tough neighborhoods herself. She could read the room,
Okay.
and she saw Troy's type immediately. Cocky on the outside, but underneath. Insecure. All bravado.
That makes sense, especially when you learn about her background later in the source.
Exactly. Foster kid, used to navigating tricky situations, tempers, power plays.
It says she learned to talk her way out of fights, stared down older kids, even a gang leader when she was, 16?
Yeah. That kind of resilience, you don't get that from a textbook. It's forged.
So that context is everything for what happens next. The first test comes.
The paper airplane.
Right. Flies across the room, lands in her handouts. Stifled laughter. The classic disruption attempt.
And everyone's watching, waiting for the reaction. Does she yell, get flustered, send someone out?
But she doesn't. The source says she doesn't even blush. She just pauses, picks it up calmly,
And then she reads the note inside.
which says, "Nice skirt. Teach wanted attention." Pretty bold. Crude.
Definitely trying to provoke her or test her limits immediately. The class is holding its breath.
In her response, she smiles.
Just smiles.
Fun.
And says creative.
But then adds the kicker.
But you need to learn how to spell detention right.
Oh,
Boom.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Isn't it? She completely sidesteps the insult, doesn't get drawn into a power struggle over the rule breaking itself.
Instead, she attacks their competence, their intelligence, in front of everyone.
Exactly. The source says the class erupts in laughter, but this time it's at Troy's crew, not with them. His smirk falters. He looks small.
That's a huge shift on day one. She won that round without raising her voice.
A key takeaway right there. Deflection and wit can be more powerful than direct confrontation sometimes.
So the chess game, as the source calls it, continues. They don't give up yet.
No way.
Yeah.
Jake drops his book loudly. Kayla asks a deliberately dumb question about the reading. Marcus starts coughing loudly, obnoxiously.
Just probing, trying to find a weak spot, get under her skin.
And Mia's countermoves are just as smart. She answers Kayla's silly question with this overly detailed, almost academic lecture on gender roles in the book, basically making the question seem even more ridiculous.
Okay.
She picks up Jake's book but gives him this look, pointed look that says, I see you.
And Marcus. The coughing.
Offers him water. Kindly.
Hmm?
But the source implies this tone, like a mocking kindness almost. Again, subtly calling out the fakeness of it.
So she's meeting every move but on her terms, turning their disruptions back on them.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
this is where the source notes a change in the rest of the class. The kids who weren't part of Troy's crew, they start paying attention.
They sense something different is happening. This isn't the usual teacher-student dynamic.
Yeah, her presence, her performance almost, is captivating them. She's holding court, but quietly.
So, end of day one. How's Troy feeling?
He's seething, the source is clear. She didn't crack, she didn't follow the script. And worse, she made him look foolish.
So his reaction is predictable, I guess.
Yep. He resolves to go harder tomorrow. This isn't over for him.
Which brings us to day two, the escalation.
Oh, yeah. Troy's plan now is significantly meaner. It's designed to really humiliate her.
What's the plan?
2 parts. First, rig a water bottle so it sprays all over her when she opens it. Second, a fake glitter bomb's love letter to read aloud.
Wow. That's stepping it up from paper airplanes.
Definitely. And the crew is all in. Jake writes this ridiculously over-the-top letter, fake signature. Kayla adds the glitter. Marcus does the water bottle swap. It's a coordinated attack.
The trap is set. Mia walks in. How's the atmosphere?
Quieter, the source says. More tension. Everyone knows something's coming. Mia looks professional. Maybe a bit tired, but composed.
And then the moment comes, she reaches for the water bottle.
Twists the cap.
And splash. Water everywhere. Soaks her blouse.
Exactly as planned. The source describes a gasp, then nervous laughter. Troy's crew are high-fiving. They think they've got her. This has to be the breaking point.
But her reaction, again, completely unexpected.
This is maybe the most stunning part.
Mhm.
She doesn't scream, doesn't cry, doesn't run out. She laughs.
Laughs out loud.
A full, rich laugh, the source says. Like, she genuinely finds it absurd, maybe even a little amusing.
That must have thrown them off completely.
Totally deflates their victory. She calmly wipes her chin, grabs paper towels. She knew where they were, which is interesting, starts blotting her blouse. Still in control.
And then she turns it around again.
She does. She actually connects the prank itself, the creativity, the planning, execution, teamwork.
Yeah.
She connects it to their potential. Misguided, obviously, but potential nonetheless.
Wow. So instead of punishment, she's sort of analyzing their methods.
In a way, yeah. And then she exposes the rest of the plan, picks up the glittery envelope,
The fake love letter.
reads it aloud, again with amusement, not anger or embarrassment. And then the masterstroke. She points out the handwriting. Says it looks familiar.
Connecting it to Jake's doodles.
Exactly. The source says Jake just freezes. She's showing him she sees everything, not just the water, but the whole setup, the planning, who did what.
That is some next level awareness.
And then she addresses the class directly. Pranks are only funny if you're smarter than your target, and I'm not sure you are.
Ouch, that lands hard.
Right. The humiliation flips entirely. It's not about her being wet anymore. It's about their prank being exposed as clumsy and predictable. She outsmarted them.
This is where Troy loses it, isn't it? He can't handle being shown up like this.
No, his ego can't take it. He stands up, towers over his desk, tries the intimidation tactic, sneers at her. You think you're tough, new girl? You're just a substitute. Trying to diminish her role, her authority. Huge. Because Mia doesn't flinch. The source describes her walking right towards him. She's shorter, but her demeanor, her energy, makes him feel small. Stands right in front of his desk.
What does she say?
Voice low, steady.
Yeah.
Cuts right through his noise. Tells him she knows his type. Loud, scared, but ultimately not scary. Calls him predictable.
Whoa, directly challenging his tough guy image.
She even leans in slightly, invading his space just enough to make him flinch. Then states it plainly, I'm not your substitute, I'm your teacher.
Drawing that line firmly.
And then she gives him the choice. Keep pushing, keep being the cliche, or sit down and actually learn something. Tells him straight up, I'm done playing.
The whole class must have been silent.
Frozen, the source says. Troy is pinned. He's never been called out like this so directly, so calmly, by someone showing zero fear. His usual tactics aren't working.
That quiet strength, that directness, it's disarming his aggression.
Absolutely. And then her next move is pure tactical genius.
What does she do?
She just turns away from him, dismisses him almost, picks up her book, and tells the class, page 47, let's talk about courage.
Wow. She doesn't wait for him to obey. She reclaims the room by moving on.
Exactly. She takes back control of the lesson, of the purpose they're all there for. And it works. The source says Troy just sits down, face burning. His crew is silent, uneasy.
The whole thing backfired. She won without yelling, without detentions, without involving the principal.
She completely dismantled his power play,
Yeah.
using psychology and presence. But he tries one last little thing.
Ah, right. He mutters something.
Yeah, under his breath. This ain't over, Teach. Trying to save face, maybe.
But Mia hears it, and this leads to that final decisive moment the source highlights, the 1-minute moment.
Yes, the source really emphasizes these next 60 seconds. Mia turns back, fixes him with his sharp look,
Yeah.
and says, "Oh, it's over, Troy."
Okay.
She brings up the principal as an option, the standard consequence, but then she pivots immediately. Or maybe you'd rather explain it to me. Right now.
Bringing it back to a direct confrontation, but on her terms.
And she steps closer again. Voice drops. And this is where she subtly reminds him of her own background, the one the source told us about earlier. "I've been in tougher places than this classroom, Troy. I've dealt with bigger bullies than you."
Using her past experience as leverage, making her calm confidence suddenly seem very, very credible.
Exactly. She's not just guessing. She knows this dynamic. And she forces the choice on him again, but frames it differently. Keep digging this hole, or try being something other than a cliche.
That's a powerful challenge, calling him predictable again.
And the source says that's the breaking point. His bravado just cracks. He looks to his crew, but they won't meet his eyes. They know he's lost. His shoulders slump. The fight's gone out of him.
He apologizes.
Mumbles it first. Mia makes him say it again, louder.
Wow.
He clears his throat, red-faced, and gives a clear apology. And then, importantly, his crew follows suit, one by one.
The entire power structure just crumbled.
Completely.
Yeah.
And Mia's reaction to the apology?
No gloating. No, I told you so.
Not at all. Just a nod. Acceptance, and then turns back to the board, picks up the chalk, continues the lesson. Like, okay, that's settled. Let's get back to work.
Incredible composure.
And the effect on the class. They're riveted now. But not by the drama, by her, by the lesson. The source says they start asking real questions about the book. Engaged.
So by the end of that period, the atmosphere is totally different.
Night and day. Troy is silent, watching her. The source describes his look as a mix of resentment, sure, but also dawning respect. The crew is quiet. The reign of terror is effectively over.
So what happens after that? Does she punish the crew?
That's what they expect. The source says she asks the core four, Troy, Jake, Kayla, Marcus, to stay back after class. They're probably bracing for detention, suspension.
But that's not her style, is it?
Nope. She sits casually on the edge of her desk, no big lecture. She tells them straight, "You guys have potential, real potential. Planning, teamwork, leadership."
But you're wasting it.
Exactly. Wasting it on cheap shots. She challenges them, especially Troy, to use those skills for something better. To be leaders in a positive way.
Putting the responsibility back on them.
Right. Her closing line to them is basically, "I'm here all year. You decide how this goes." Then dismisses them. No punishment, just a challenge.
How do they react to that?
They shuffle out, heads down. The source says they're no longer the untouchable crew. Their whole dynamic, their identity has been shaken up.
And word gets around the school, I imagine.
Like wildfire, the source says. By lunchtime, everyone's buzzing about Mrs. Harper, the new teacher who faced down Troy Baxter and won without breaking a sweat, without even raising her voice.
And Mia's reaction to the buzz.
Just calmly grading papers in the staff room. Blouse still a bit damp from the water, probably, but with a little smile. Projecting total competence and control. She didn't play their game. She changed the rules.
So what's the long-term impact in room 204? Does the change stick?
Remarkably so, according to the source. Over the next few weeks, things really shift. Troy stops challenging her. There's this grudging respect.
And the others?
Jake, the doodler,
Yeah.
starts doing his homework, actually uses his drawing talents for class projects.
Mm-hmm.
Kayla, sharp tongue, softens up, starts asking genuine questions.
And Marcus, the quiet one.
Writes this really thoughtful essay on Atticus Finch,
Yeah.
from the book they were reading, and gets his first A. It's a real transformation.
That's amazing. It's not just about behavior management, it's actual engagement.
Exactly. And Mia doesn't just rest on her laurels. She keeps teaching, keeps pushing them, listening,
Mm-hmm.
brings in speakers, organizes debates, even lets the class choose the next novel they read. She builds a real learning environment.
So room 204 changes.
It becomes this strange kind of haven, the source calls it. In the middle of a tough school, you've got kids reading who never read, kids speaking up who are always silent.
And Mia's legacy.
She becomes a bit of a legend, not just for being smart or cool, but for walking into that lion's den, facing the supposed toughest kid, and making the lion sit down and listen.
It wasn't just about discipline, it was about changing their whole perspective on power.
Yeah, the bullies weren't just subdued. They were prompted to rethink what strength and influence actually mean.
Okay, so let's distill this. Looking back at this deep dive into the unbreakable teacher, what are the big takeaways for you, the listener?
Well, first off, it's just a powerful example of navigating conflict, isn't it? Calmness under pressure is huge.
And really observing, understanding what motivates the other person, seeing the insecurity behind Troy's bravado was key.
Definitely. And turning challenges into teaching moments. That water prank, she turned it into a comment on their potential for teamwork
Right, recognizing potential even in the most disruptive behavior. That's a big one.
and how she set boundaries. It wasn't about yelling or formal punishments initially. It was about that calm, unwavering presence, directness.
Her past experiences clearly gave her this unexpected strength, this resilience that wasn't in the teacher's manual.
Absolutely. It shows leadership isn't always about force or volume. Sometimes it's about that quiet certainty, that ability to challenge people to be better than they are.
And those specific moments are so instructive. The spelling error, calling out the handwriting, the laughter instead of anger, dismissing Troy mid-rant.
Yeah, those tactical decisions in the heat of the moment show real emotional intelligence and strategic thinking, probably honed by those past experiences.
It really makes you think differently about where strength comes from.
So, reflecting on Room 204's transformation,
Hmm.
what does this story suggest, maybe, about influence in general?
That's a good final thought. How often is what looks like power just
No,
no just bravado to covering up fear?
exactly. And what kind of unbreakable strength lies in someone like Mia, who doesn't need to shout to command respect? What does this story tell us about the real, sometimes quiet sources of influence and leadership? Something to mull over.